Hi guys, so we'll be starting with lesson 21, the legal framework governing company secretaries. Now, company secretaries are basically legal heads of companies. As chartered accountants are finance head of the company, like that we have company secretaries who are the heads. Now, what do these company secretaries do? Like in any listed big company you see, Reliance, Mahindras, Tatas, L&T, any of these ONGCs, they all must be having a company secretary appointed. This company secretary is the legal head of the company. Now, what would a company secretary basically do? Now, company secretary is an expert in the field of law. They know in specifically corporate law, any law, any section, any provision related to company law, or any topic related to Companies Act, the company secretary would be a master of it, and he is the professional who is always approached. Now, they are compliance officers of the company. They ensure that all the laws are complied with. All the share market related SEBI laws, they're the advisors to the board. Company secretary is the only professional who is allowed to attend the board meeting. All the discussions are with the board of directors and they directly advise to the board. So the board of directors generally ask the company secretary whether this particular strategy would make sense, whether it is commercially and legally viable and possible. They are corporate planners. All the AGMs, EGMs, any general meetings are all held, managed and organized by the company secretaries. They are the strategic managers of the company. They ensure that the company achieves the corporate goals. Now, in the profession of CS, you would see that after you complete your CS, you get two options. Either you could become a company secretary in employment, or you could be self-employed and you could be called as a company secretary in practice. Now, let's understand what is that. The first part. Now, these are two career choices that you can make. Now, the first one, after you complete your CS, you would choose that why don't I become a legal head, I become appointed in a company. So when you do that, you get, let's say I apply in Reliance Industries and I become the company secretary of Reliance Industries. So I said that I am a company secretary in employment. So who is a company secretary in employment? He is attached to a particular organization, like any attached to a particular company. He is in employment, so he comes on the company's payroll. He becomes an employee of that particular company. The next is a company secretary in practice. I choose not to go and be employed in a company. I don't want to do a job. I decide to start my own practice. So I start my own CS firm. In the firm, I do a varied, diverse practices. Like I would not only cater to one company, but I can cater to many companies. I can give them advice, strategic advice. I could sign annual returns. I can help them incorporate the company. I can help them register, obtain licenses, etc. So here, when I start a own firm, okay, so I become in practice. So a company secretary who is deemed to be in practice. So when I say deemed to be in practice means what? He is not affiliated with any one particular organization. He will give his services to many organizations. So we also have our own CS firm. In our CS firm, we get various different kind of companies who ask us, call us up for advice. I'll give you a few of them. One of them was a company who wanted to ask whether the GST was payable or no. So we did our research and we made a legal opinion and sent it to them. So that's how we earn. Second is there was a company, they wanted to ask, due to this pandemic, they wanted to lay off the employees. They wanted to terminate many employees, retrenchment. So they were asking what are the labor laws that they need to comply with. So all of this we prepare our legal opinion and we send it to them. Okay. Moving forward, another two bifurcations you will come across in company secretaries is whether you are a ACS, a company secretary could be a ACS or it could be a FCS. Now let's understand what is a ACS and FCS, the difference. First is the moment I clear my CS exam, final exam, and I will have to undergo training, that is your articleship. Once I complete that articleship and I become a member of ICSI, I will immediately be called as a ACS. So on clearing your exam and completing your training and applying to get your name in the register of members, I will become a ACS. Now, what is FCS? After 5 years of practicing as a ACS, I get a seniority. I get a kind of another term where I come to know that the person must have been in practice minimum for 5 years. So you become a FCS. So today I will become a ACS, and after 5 years I will become a FCS. So let's see what is a ACS. As I told you, a ACS is a person who has completed his final examination and has done the training, and I have applied to become a member of the ICSI. So we become first ACS. Then coming to FCS. Now FCS is basically you should have at least 5 years of experience as a associate. So if he is an associate for at least 5 years and fulfills such other conditions, that he should not have violated any of the provisions, he should not be guilty of any professional misconduct, so he should be an associate member for at least 5 years, then I'll be called as a fellow. Now once you become a CS and a company secretary, you have to understand that this is a very big responsibility. You worked really hard, you've been on that 1% that passed the exams, and now after becoming a professional, you will be directly advising, directly handling, directly certifying companies. So you have to ensure that many times there are these fraudulent companies, they try to get a certification, they say that please certify us, हमको आप approval दे दो, हम आपको एक XYZ amount दे देंगे. Now that amounts to professional misconduct. Now what is professional misconduct? When a professional tries to violate any code of conduct, acts unprofessionally, this is called as professional misconduct. Now we've seen so many times there are scams. In the scams there is inquiry, and after inquiry we came to know that the professional was involved, he was a party to the fraud. ICSI have set up certain committees and certain directorates who will look into this and then take action against such professionals. So if we see what is the disciplinary mechanism that has been set up to govern company secretaries. First of all company secretaries will be governed by an act called as the Company Secretaries Act 1980. So you can mark it as important. This is the act that we will be governed by. In this act, they have made certain disciplinary committees. That is, they will govern professionals, that the professionals should act professionally and should not make any unprofessional acts. So first thing what they have done is they made a disciplinary directorate. A disciplinary directorate is like a director of discipline, is like an investigating officer. Then there are two important bodies that have been created. This investigating officer will first find out whether he will make a prima facie opinion whether you have done a fraud or no. So he will prepare his report, and then he will submit his report to two bodies. One is either a board of discipline or a disciplinary committee. So there are two boards that have been made up. We'll see what are those. Board of discipline covers all the misconduct specified under Schedule 1, whereas disciplinary committee covers all the misconducts mentioned in Schedule 2. So this speaks about all the misconducts under Schedule 1 of the Act, and this will be taken to whenever you do Schedule 2 specifically. If any person is unhappy with the decisions of these committees, they can go and appeal to the appellate committee. Let's see what is first. We'll go in order. Who is the disciplinary directorate? So first of all, I told you he is an investigating officer, treated as a director discipline. He makes investigations on information received or any complaint received. He will first form his own prima facie opinion whether a person has done misconduct or no. If the directorate is of the opinion that the member is guilty of any of the acts done under first schedule, we'll see what are this first schedule, then he will refer it to Board of Discipline. If the Director of Discipline finds that the member is guilty of any acts done under Schedule 2 or both 1 and 2, then he will place it before the disciplinary committee. So first, the disciplinary directorate, if it is in Schedule 1, he will take it to Board of Discipline, and if it is matters related to Schedule 2, he will take it to the disciplinary committee. Let's see this Board of Discipline. First of all, ICSI has set up this Board of Discipline. Now this Board of Discipline will look into professional misconducts of those which are given in the first schedule. After the person has been found guilty, you can reprimand the member, that is punish the member. You can remove the name of the member from the books. You can impose fine on the person. Next, we are coming to professional misconducts which are given under Schedule 1 and Schedule 2 of the Act. So firstly, the council has the authority to exercise disciplinary powers into in instituting inquiry into cases. So first thing, the council has been made which will investigate into various misconducts, whether a person is guilty of professional misconduct or not. Now let's see, very important that we are coming to. I told you all, Schedule 1 matters will be referred to the Board of Discipline, and Schedule 2 matters will be referred to the disciplinary committee. Now what are those Schedule 1? Now Schedule 1, let's see how many parts does it have. This is all the Schedule 1. It has actually 4 parts. 4 parts. And Schedule 2, if you go to see, this is the Schedule 2. Schedule 2 has 3 parts. It has 3 parts. Now let's see what is given in those. मतलब अगर Schedule 1 में जो 4 parts है उसमें से कुछ भी गलत करोगे तो Director of Discipline will refer the matter to the Board of Discipline after he is found that according to him you're wrong. Let's see what is given. These are all misconducts. Now let's see. Professional misconduct given in the first schedule. First, a person will be deemed to be like imagine, I'll give you a few examples. I'm a company secretary. I give the matter referred to me to a non-professional who's not a partner, who's not a professional, any kind of professional. So I'll be guilty of misconduct कि ऐसे कैसे मैं professional matters उठा के non-professionals को दे रहा हूँ. So it will affect the quality of work. Let's see. So a person shall be deemed to be guilty of professional misconduct if I allow any person to act in his name. So I allow any person to act in my name unless that person is also a company secretary. So he should also be a company secretary, only then I can tell him to act on my behalf. Second, I am saying that I will share the commission losses, commission brokerage profits with any person other than a member or a partner. So why will I take money and then share it with any other person? So I'm sharing with anyone else who is not my partner or not a professional. So this is also guilty of professional misconduct. Again, I share the professional work with a person who is not a member of the institute. So all of these reasons are because it affects the quality of work. The next, if I see what is a misconduct, if I advertise, make certain advertisements, or if I advertise my professional attainments. So if you go to see a doctor, lawyer, CA, CS are not allowed to issue advertisements ki buy or give offers कि एक के साथ एक free. Now those are business practices. Here we are being professional, so therefore it is not ethical or allowed to advertise yourself. You are allowed to explain who you are, but not give all these offers to allure the clients. Next, if we see, if I am already employed in one company, can I take up a job in any other company without intimating the first company? If I do that, it is guilty of misconduct. So accepts a position, okay, without communicating with the other company. Then I engage in any business other than the profession of CS unless it is being allowed. So if I am a company secretary, I cannot engage myself and sign as a CA or as a lawyer. That is again misconduct. Certain professions are allowed, like teaching is allowed, okay, going in your family business is allowed. So these are the things that are allowed. I allow a person not being a member of ICSI to sign on my behalf. So again, this is misconduct. In part 2 of first schedule, what have they given? Again, if I see a member of ICSI being an employee of the company shall be guilty of misconduct if he pays to any person any share of the emoluments of the employment undertaken by him. So for example, if I am working in Reliance Industries and I am getting a salary, can I share that salary with someone else? So I am employed in a company and I am sharing the money that I get to anyone else. It's again misconduct. Excepts if I am here, the first one is about giving, the second one is about taking. Okay, by way of gratification, any kind of gifts I am getting. So all of this is wrong. Next, if I see what is misconduct, I say that I am a fellow member of ICSI when I am not. So not being a fellow of the institute acts as a FCS or does not supply the required information. Now imagine if any board of director of discipline, board of discipline, disciplinary committee, any of these bodies have asked for information and I am not supplying, I will be guilty of misconduct. The next is in first schedule part 4. They are talking about a member shall be guilty of misconduct automatically if he is guilty for 6 months by any civil or criminal court for an offence punishable for a term not exceeding 6 months. तो अगर मैं कोई भी प्लेस के अंदर, कोई भी कोर्ट के अंदर गिल्टी पाया गया हूँ, आई हैव बीन फाउंड गिल्टी for an offence not exceeding 6 months, then automatically I'll be said that I have already brought a disrepute to my profession and I'll be guilty of misconduct. The next, now we are coming to schedule 2 misconducts. Now schedule 2 says that if I disclose confidential information about the company to someone else, it is a misconduct. I express an opinion in which I have substantial interest. So for example, if I am engaged in a particular company or in a firm and I give certification to that same company, so again I'll be guilty of misconduct where I already have, if I'm a secretarial auditor, I should not be related to the company, and if I'm related and I still give an certification, I'll be guilty of misconduct. I failed to disclose material facts. So whenever I was bound to disclose and I didn't disclose, again it is a misconduct. Fails to report any misstatement. So any kind of a misstatement was there, I found a fraud, I found a material statement but I did not report it. Again I'll be guilty of misconduct. I did not exercise due diligence. Okay. I failed to obtain sufficient information to express an opinion and still I am giving opinions. So imagine if I am the secretarial auditor for the company. I did not procure enough information to give opinion. I did not ask anyone, I did not make the inquiry, but still I just signed it and I gave away the opinions. Again, misconduct. Next, if I see Schedule 2, Part 2. Now here, a member of ICSI shall be deemed to be guilty of misconduct if I contravene any of the provisions of the Act, or I disclose confidential information being an employee, or defecates or embezzles the money received. Embezzles means steals, robs the money in professional capacity. Or the last one, Part 3, Schedule 2, talks about if I am guilty by any civil or criminal court for an offence which is exceeding 6 months. So these are the misconducts that have been given. Now we'll go from the module and we'll finish it off. Now as we start, I'll give you the markings. First is the Company Secretaries Act 1980. Just a small background, it was introduced by the Minister of Law that time, that was Shri Shiv Shankar Prasad, and he made a statement that the profession of company secretary is important in corporate management. Then there are these regulations also. Now we've seen what is the difference between a ACS and FCS. Two classes, associate and fellow. Associate is a person who has passed the exam and has completed his training. A fellow is a person who is an associate for at least 5 years and fulfills the condition that he is not found guilty of any professional misconduct during his tenure. Now we had seen either you could get a COP, Certificate of Practice, and work as a practicing company secretary, or you can work as a whole-time company secretary in a particular company. So I can be in whole-time employment in one company like in Reliance, Tata's, etc., or I can start my own firm and do my own practice. Now a person will be deemed to be in practice if I engage myself in the practice of profession of company secretary, performs such services related to incorporation, amalgamation, reconstruction, winding up. These are all the services that a company secretary does. He acts as a share transfer agent, secretarial auditor, etc. Holds himself as a company secretary in practice. Now again, this is there a register of members. If today also I want to go and see whether a person is a member of ICSI or no, I just have to go to ICSI website, and on that I can check whether a person is a member of ICSI or no. His full name, all the details will be given. The next is removal of the name from the register of members. So if a professional is dead, or he gives in his request to terminate, or he has not paid the required fees, okay, or for any other reasons, his name can be removed from the register. Now we've seen that all professionals are regulated under the Chapter 5 of Company Secretaries Act 1980. Now, this disciplinary mechanism, we had seen that there were few parts. First, the disciplinary directorate. The directorate is a director. He's like an investigating officer. So, Section 21 of the Act provides the establishment of a disciplinary directorate. This is the name of the office. It will be headed by an officer of the institute, and the name of that officer will be Director Discipline. The work of this officer will be to make investigations in respect of any kind of complaints received. They will make a prima facie opinions of the alleged misconduct. So he will first check whether the misconduct has been committed or no. The director of discipline, if he is of the opinion that the person is guilty of any of the acts done and mentioned under the first schedule, he will refer it to the board of discipline. If he feels that a person is guilty of the acts specified under schedule 2, then he will refer it to the disciplinary committee. Now let's see what is a board of discipline. All of this has been set up by the council. The board of discipline is constituted by the council. Both of them, even if you see, the committee, disciplinary committee and the board of both are set up by the council. Now, they will follow a certain procedure, and if they have found that the person is guilty, they will first give them an opportunity being heard, then reprimand them, remove them, or impose any fine as they deem fit. Disciplinary committee can also take actions. If a person has done an act either of schedule, second schedule, or both of first and second schedule, same thing, you can reprimand him, you can remove him, or you can impose fine on that professional. Now, these committees will have the same powers as that of the civil court, and they will have the powers as given under CPC 1908 for summoning a person, discovery, for receiving any kind of affidavits. If a person is unhappy with the decision of the board of discipline or the disciplinary committee, they can go and appeal to the appellate authority, which is set up under section 22A. Now, the appellate authority constituted under chartered accountancy shall be deemed to be the appellate authority for CS also. Any member aggrieved by the order of the board of discipline or the disciplinary committee may within 90 days appeal to such authority, and then the authority can either confirm the order, pass such orders as they deem fit, modify it or set aside it, or they can impose any penalty. Now we are seeing the misconducts that were given. Certain provisions for misconduct. All the schedule 1 items will be referred to board of discipline, and the schedule 2 items will be referred to the disciplinary committee. Now the one that I have given, just a small short summary you can do of those from what we have done. You don't have to go in so much detail. Now after that, towards the end, there is this part where you can just read it: procedure in inquiry before the disciplinary committee. So the matter will be placed before the disciplinary committee. All the facts will be placed before it. They have a power to regulate its own procedure. They shall give the complainant and the respondent the notice. They will be allowed to defend themselves, and in the end, the order copy will be given to both of them. Now, in the recent updates, we've seen multidisciplinary firms also. Multidisciplinary firms are mega firms, which is covered in the next chapter. So, in the mega firms, we've seen the partners should be all professionals. So, they should be members of ICSI, ICAI, ICWA, or the bar council, architects, actuaries. And if you see in this towards the end, they've explained the disciplinary mechanism. Write a short note on the board of discipline, who is a fellow member, and about the appellate authority. So this chapter doesn't have much weightage in the exam, you could say around 5 marks. So just referring to the past year papers and getting an overview of this chapter will be sufficient.